What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. This video is going to be 6 tips on how to use the Sony SLOG2 and SLOG3 profiles with your Sony camera for the best result when you are out filming. So let's jump over to tip number 1. Tip number 1 is to never underexpose when you are shooting with either of the SLOG profiles with your Sony camera, because once you underexpose your SLOG profile, you will lose all the details in the shadows and it's gonna be ungradable and you will not be able to recover any of those shadows in post-production. A lot of the information when shooting in SLOG profiles can be found at the higher end of the gamma curve. So that means to get the most quality out of your Sony picture profile and the most detailed and the most dynamic range, that means you will have to overexpose by 1 to 2 stops. And what I recommend is to always shoot at an overexposure of +2 stops. And tip number 2 is to always shoot with manual settings. Shooting with manual settings, you can control the shutter speed, you can control the aperture and also the ISO, which is the base things that you want to control and adjust when you're shooting with SLOG. So tip number 3, make sure to have your ISO as low as possible. The higher your ISO is, the more grain you're gonna put in your footage and also the less of dynamic range you're going to have. So the lower the ISO you have, the better video quality is what you're gonna get out of your camera. So it's really important, if you have to crank up your ISO, that you rather put some additional lighting into the scene if that is possible, or that you don't shoot with the SLOG profiles at all. Then it's better to shoot with Cine 4, HLG3 or a custom profile that you made for that type of scenery. And you can easily go in and do that as you're on the spot doing your filming, but keep in mind that SLOG2 and 3 is mostly for super bright conditions, sunlight, daylight, and it's not really something that you want to use after the golden hour and after sunset, basically. So keep that in mind. That is really important to have different color profiles when you're out filming as well. And tip number 4, make sure to keep an eye on the exposure level when you're out filming. Especially if you're filming in bright daylight or in daylight in general, the +2 stops of exposure might not be that accurate. So it's really important to also keep an eye on the curve to see if your footage is properly exposed. So tip number 5, try to avoid shooting with SLOG when you are shooting slow motion, especially SLOG3 but also SLOG2. So I always recommend that you shoot with something else like Cine 4, HLG3 if you're gonna shoot slow motion. And the reason for that is that the SLOG2 and 3 profiles are very fragile when it comes to higher frame rates. So if you shoot at a higher frame rate, it's more likely that you will bring in some aliasing to the colors and you will kind of have this image tearing when you are color grading your footage, and it's gonna make your color grading process a lot harder. So I kind of recommend shooting with maybe the best slow motion profile would be Cine 4 if you really need to shoot slow motion for every single clip that you are shooting, or to make a custom low light or daylight profile. And if you want to have a look at some of my custom profiles for the different scenarios, slow motion, low light, 4K, make sure to leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to make a video of that in the future as well. So tip number 6 is more related to people editing their videos on a PC or a Mac, because we don't have this in LumaFusion. Not yet. And that is adding curves to your SLOG footage over adjusting the highlight and shadows. By adjusting the curves, you will maintain that crisp quality instead of just adjusting the sliders on the basic tools. Let's say, for example, in Premiere Pro, you always want to make that curve to maintain the quality in the footage, because it feels like it kinda need some sort of a decoding. By having the curve, you can actually achieve that by just bringing up the highlights and bringing down the shadows, and then maybe change the midtones a little bit to your likings to maintain that crispiness of your footage. As you can see here on these 2 images, the one to the left is only color graded by using the basic correction tools within Premiere Pro. The one on the right side here is only adjusted by using the curve, and the curve that I applied is looking like this. And if you take a look at the curve here on the right side, this is the image to the right here, and you can see that we have a lot more detail in the nose over the image on the left side. The image on the left side is only color graded and adjusted by using the normal basic correction here. As you can see, we jumped the highlights and we lowered the shadows to match the normal curve here. And if you take a look at the left side here, you can see the lumetri scope, and you can see that they are perfectly matching to each other. So this is basically the difference between using the basic correction and only curves. So you will get more details using curves only, and you will also get a more natural skin tone. As you can see on the left image here, it's a little bit more washed out and a little bit whiter than the one on the right side, which is the curve only. And if you take a look at the forehead here, you can see that there is a little bit more detail in the right image over the left image. And again, the right image is only adjusted by using the curves here, and the left image is only adjusted by using the basic correction. So this is the reason why it's really important to use curves if you have that in your editing software. But when it comes to LumaFusion, we don't have those curves, and we would really like to see a color curve in LumaFusion. That would be so awesome. But the thing is, since we don't have this, I have one tip that you can maybe try and see if works for your footage, and that is to take a snapshot of your footage and then take that footage over to something like Affinity Photo, do all the S curves and the curves changes and color grading, and then make a specific new LUT for that type of scenery and export that as a LUT, that color grading, and bring that over to LumaFusion and then apply that to your footage, and you will have the same type of effect, sorta, because you always want to apply a LUT to an S-Log profile to kind of bring more of that colors back, and then you want to adjust the colors by changing the adding the original color presets, which you can find inside of LumaFusion. And for Premiere Pro especially, you can always apply the LUT, and you can just go over to the basic tools and you can adjust the sliders to do the final tweaking. And now a bonus tip at the end here. So tip number 7 is, when you are shooting with S-Log profiles, make sure that you try to never shoot above an ISO of 6400. You don't want to go above 6400. You don't really want to touch 6400, but a maximum limit of ISO should be 6400. Always try to bring it as low as possible, but if you have to crank it up and you really want to use those S-Log profiles, I don't recommend that you go higher than 6400. I would rather change the picture profile to something like HLG3 or Cine 4, or even make your own custom low light profile, because cranking that ISO up to 6400 kinda means you're in a very dark spot, and then it's easier to make a new profile which is easier to shoot with, easier to color grade, and has a lot more crispiness to it when you are filming in low light conditions. And if this is something that you would like to see, make sure to leave a comment down in the comment section below, and I'll see what I can do for the future. But that's the end of this video, and I really hope that you learned something new when it comes to picture profiles on the different Sony cameras. And I really enjoyed making this video, so if you want to see more videos like this, how I put up my cameras for filmmaking, different ways of filming, and how to film with the different type of settings and picture profiles, I mentioned that and all that. Make sure to leave that down in the comment section below. And with that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.